Okay, welcome to the stationery haul video from New York City. Just getting back from a trip with my wife to New York City over Thanksgiving. Got to see some family, had a great time. We also took the opportunity to visit multiple stationery stores, pick up a few things, and just get to see all these unique shops. It really was a unique way to go to just about every region of New York City proper to visit the variety of stores. So I wanted to go through what all we purchased, kind of talk through a little bit of the experience of going to the stores, what to expect, and show off the goodies. So let's get started. So the first store that we ended up going to was in the Bryant Park area. It was called KinoKuniya. It's a bookstore on the top two levels, but the bottom level is essentially a Japanese stationery store, with half of the basement being manga and anime and some type of figures, and the rest being stationery, a selection of pens, inks, Japanese plushes, and other things like that. It was a lot to take in. There was a lot of product there. Every little nook and cranny of this large store was full of different things. With it being Black Friday, of course, the store was crowded. We made our way through. We looked at stuff there. It was our first store we're going to, so we didn't actually end up purchasing anything. But I got a couple of clips of some of the displays, lots of Japanese papers, books, not as many pens. They had some inks. They had some displays of things like Waringal or Rojozuku. They had some pens in a case, but I wouldn't call this a pen store. I would call it a bookstore that happens to sell stationery and pens. But it was a neat place to visit, walking down those stairs into the basement and just kind of taking it all in. So that was a neat way to start the trip. And then from there, we moved on. After we visited KinoKuniya, since we were right there at Bryant Park, we went and looked at the holiday market, got a picture in front of the fountain. They had the ice skating rink set up. We actually took a little bit of time to sit down and do some writing, to say we're able to sit at a small table in Bryant Park during the holidays and, make some notes on things. I wrote down my notes of what I, remembered of KinoKuniya so that we'd have it for the video. My wife was able to do a little bit of book ideas in her traveler's notebooks. So it was a nice little, pause to kind of take in New York as a whole. And then from there, we were looking geographically at what we had in the list of stores, and we actually headed to Phil's Stationery. Now, Phil's, I would call it, when you first walk in, more of an office supply store. You see displays of Rhodia. They had a Waterman display and other pens. They actually were one of the only stores that had used pens. But the plot twist is, even with it being Black Friday, we were looking around. We didn't really see a salesperson. Then I guess Phil came out of the back and said, "I'd love to help you, but I'm working on Amazon orders today. I only had the lights on because I came out to get a coffee and kind of forgot to turn them off." So we briefly got to look in Phil's, didn't really get to shop because, we got the impression that he really wasn't open for retail business. So we went on and, headed to the train. After we went to Phil's, we did go through Grand Central Station, which was both of our first times being there. That was cool. I got a picture of the ceiling, just to see the spectacle that is Grand Central Station in New York. Okay, so Yoseka in Brooklyn was a wonderful shop. I will say, from what you see in social media, on Instagram and YouTube, it looks like it would be bigger. It's a much smaller than you'd expect shop, but it does not lack in selection or quality or aesthetic. They have a nice big testing station in the middle with all sorts of pens, various papers, demo of almost every paper product they have that you can write in to test to see if you like it. I will say, if there's pens that you want to try or different nibs, be sure and ask the staff. We were talking to them about an Esterbrook, and then they asked if we wanted to try the other nibs, and they didn't have all of them out, but they had all of the specialty grinds like the Kirkspear needlepoint, the Gino Salino, and things like that underneath. They pulled all those out. We were able to try those, which was a nice plus. The staff was great, very knowledgeable. We I don't remember her name, but I was able to see all the different sailor pins they had. I went back and forth of whether or not I wanted one of their exclusive sailors, but they were mostly the smaller ones, and I prefer the bigger body pins, so I didn't leave with a sailor. But here's what we did get at Yoseka. One thing we were told, to look for when we went there was the Stology, the Yoseka branded version. My wife got one, and she's already started using it. Mine is still in the package, but it's the nice gridded paper, so that'll be fun to use. I don't think I'm going to use it as a daily journal of any sort. It's just going to be a general use book for me. My wife, she is using it for her writing notes. This is another one that just kind of caught my eye. This Clyde notebook. And I actually used it to kind of take down notes of the trip of, what we did in the order. So I would have notes for the video, but it's a 2mm grid. And with my tiny writing, it's actually, I've quickly become a fan. It's a smaller book, but I could definitely see getting some more of these with the 2mm grid, but nice paper, the ink settled down. That's Konpeki from the Opus 88 Coloro, the 2025 that I put a video out of recently, and I'll put a link to it here if you want to check that out. But, really nice paper, no show through, you can kind of tell there's something there, but you can't see through, no bleed through. So very pleased with that. I've already put it to use. And then we didn't get the Traveler's Notebooks there, but my wife got the the Yoseka Charm for this Traveler's Notebook of hers. And then for this one, she got the Coffee Bean. So, you have to appreciate the charms and the customization that you can do. Yoseka is an official traveler store, so she also got one of her inserts stamped. I couldn't find that in our unpacking, but, they are a store, so you can ask them, and they will pull out the stamp. They also have their own Yoseka stamp as well that you could, stamp inside your notebooks. So, wonderful experience. That's somewhere we will definitely visit every time we go back to New York. It's a nice kind of industrial area of Brooklyn, some nice shops around it, so very pleasant experience overall. After Yoseka, we headed to Goods for the Study on 8th Avenue. My wife is actually the one who made purchases there, and she hasn't really opened this yet, but I got her permission before opening it up for her. This was she wants to get into the wax stamp, sealing stamps, and this is an all brass sealing kit, which, I thought was cool. She was on the fence, and I was like, no, if you're going to get one, get the nice one that's all brass. It's got a brass holder for the tea candle. It would sit in there, and then the little smelting cup, I guess that's what you'd call it, would sit right there. Let me clear some of this package under here. So that was neat, and actually I didn't put this out. She also got a greenish set of beads, so she can start playing with the ceiling. And then she got 2 initial stamps. One's just a heart, and then a dog paw, of course, because gotta love dog paws. Something just so she can kind of learn the process of sealing wax and letters, and eventually I'm sure we'll go somewhere else that has more seal options, or she might get a custom one made for her author work. That's yet to be seen, but I had some sealing. I think I have a seal somewhere. I have to find it from when I used to work at a bookstore. It's just the letter D, which would be a nice, nice having an initial. But, definitely good if you're going to New York, visit Goods for the Study. Pleasant staff. That's one thing that was common with pretty much all of these stores. The staff were friendly, especially when you started talking pens and they realized that, you wanted to look at stuff. You kind of knew what you were looking at. Not to say that someone who is walking in off the street who's never held a fountain pen, wouldn't get the same kind of wonderful service. But there's something different when they realize that, you have you're familiar, you're looking for certain items, and, what do they have that might fit exactly what you're looking for, since they know their selection better than I would from looking around, at the various shelves. So pleasant experience at Goods for the Study on 8th. That was the end of our evening. So after that, we went back to our hotel and kind of rested up for the evening. Trying to look at my notes here just to see if there's anything I missed. Nope, that was it. So then we went on to Saturday. So on Saturday, our first stop was to head to Soho, and we went to the Lamy store. And the Lamy store, this was Small Business Saturday, so there was a pretty decent crowd in there. Once again, a smaller store, a nice testing station, a variety of pens out. They had a good sanitation for their pens. Once you used them, you put them in a tray and they were running them through. So that's nice, that they're still keeping up some of those things. After talking to the employee there, I tried some pens and we started talking pens. And then she was telling me, well, do you have any other of the nibs you want to try? And similar to Yoseka, down in the drawers, she was able to pull out some of the character nibs, which are, being discontinued, that they still had in stock. But this is actually what I left with here, and I'll do an actual, video to it itself. But I ended up picking up the blacked out version, as you can see here, of the Studio LX. It's an extra fine nib, as expected. So I'm looking forward to putting this to use. The sample I was writing with was great. You could write reverse, you could write severe angles. So I really look forward to getting some ink in this and putting it through its paces. But the Lamy store was fun. We signed up for the notifications. She did say that they do shipping from the store there where you can call in, which is nice to know, for Lamy specific things, especially with Lamy having been purchased. There will be some changes coming up, I'm sure, as with any new company's ownership. But that was a fun experience. And then from Lamy, we headed on to the Goods for Study at the Mulberry location. As was the common theme for, shopping in New York on Small Business Saturday, the Mulberry location, had a decent crowd in there. Now this store is unique because it's actually split into two. The left side off the street was the pens and stationery items, and then the right side, which had a separate entrance, was the actual stationery store itself, which had all the journals, calendars, and paper products. What I did leave with is a custom 92 demonstrator in a fine nib. I have a 74, I have my 823, I didn't have a 92, and after looking at the sailors and just not finding one, like I mentioned at the other store, it was similar here. They didn't have any extra fine nibs, but I know what the fine writes like on my 823. I did finally, take the plunge to get the custom 92, so I look forward to doing a video on this as well. Piston filler. And I picked up an ink to go with it based off the recommendation of the employee. She pulled out her own personal journal. The Sailor Tea Time, which is an orange, kind of a burnt orange ink, and I really liked the look of it, so I thought I'd give that a try. So I picked up that bottle as well. All the stores are great. All the employees are great. Once again, same theme. Once you started talking pens with them and what you had and, what are their favorites? What do you like to write with? How do you write? They were asking all the questions you'd expect so they can make sure they can, assist you best as they're able to, see if there's any products they had that might fit what you're looking for. So that was nice. And after we left Goods for the Study on the Mulberry location, we headed to Nicconeko, Zakkaya. So Nicconeko was, a very Japanese-oriented store, very small, kind of hole in the wall that if you didn't know what you're looking for, you'd probably walk past and think nothing of it. But once again, nice and crowded. I went in, kind of made a pass through. This is one that's really not a pin store. They sell some pins, but it's not a pin store, I would say. They had a lot of stationery items, and my wife actually spent more time in there. They had a nice display of seals. She got a different wax seal that's like a heart with flames around it or feathers. It's kind of hard to tell. I did like, plug for their packaging. They had a stamp on the bag, their own little sticker, since 2015. So nice little touch on the packaging. Now she did pick up this, it's Marks Incorporated. It's like a gold journal. So it's a daily for it starts a couple weeks into 2024 and then into 2025, where it's kind of a bullet journal style, where you can track goals, a to-do list, reviewing items, kind of just a daily record to keep track of whatever you choose to. It has a couple of bookmarks in it, so you can change different pages, because there's some that are, month in the front and then individual days as you go through. So a neat little book, and the format was different. I think she said what caught her eye is the square format. It's going to stand out on her desk or in her bag so that, she knows to grab for this one as she starts tracking. Now, because we just started the month, she hasn't written anything in it yet with our travel back, but I think she plans on working on that this evening to kind of get started in there so that she doesn't fall behind. So then after Nicconeko, that was the end of our shopping of the stores. We went to Chinatown with my wife's nephew, and when I say nephew, some people might think, oh, young nephew. He's a professional adult working in New York. So we went with him to one of a little hole-in-the-wall Chinese restaurant that he liked. He knew, cash only in the basement, family style, wonderful Chinese food. Got a few dishes and kind of spread them all. And now we were supposed to go to the one next door, but the line was crazy long that supposedly invented the egg roll. I think that's one of those topics that goes back and forth with debate. But fun experience, nice to get to spend some time with him and have good conversation, to kind of wrap up that evening, and then on to Sunday. Now, Sunday was an abbreviated day. We didn't actually have any other stores that we wanted to try and make it to. So we had a leisurely morning. We had a presentation we were attending from our stay. But then we went to McGee's Irish Pub, which, if you've ever watched the TV show How I Met Your Mother, it was the inspiration for McLaren's from the show. They had show-themed drinks and things like that. Traditional Irish food. My wife had the shepherd's pie. I had the turkey club. Great food, cool ambiance. Had my Guinness at the pub in New York City, as you would expect. So that was fun. And then after that, we actually went and found a little kind of cafe, coffee shop, bodega restaurant called Cascade, and actually sat down and did some writing. That's where I filled in all my notes, for this, made my overview. And that was when I first got to try this Clyde notebook, and I was, really pleased with it. So after that, we headed back to our hotel, went out to Angela's Pizza, which is in the basement of the Ed Sullivan Theater, had dinner with my wife's niece, kind of a final, so we got to say goodbye to, both family members individually with dinner. That was nice, and the next morning we got up to fly home. Now, one thing with flying home, we did have one of the best gate neighbors ever at the airport. There was a corgi sitting right across from me who loved pets. His name was Arthur, and that was a nice little plus before getting on the plane. Plane was a little bit delayed, but overall good flight. We came home to actual flurries of snow in Nashville. We didn't see snow in New York City with freezing temperatures most of the time, but it was flurrying when we got back to Nashville. So overall, a great trip. Definitely want to visit most of these stores again, most if not all of these stores again when we go back to New York the next time. There are a few other stores that we didn't make it to that were on the list that were either just, geographically weren't in the cards for this trip, or, we didn't go to Fountain Pen Hospital because we went there in March. That's where Beth actually got her first Esterbrook which kind of got her more into pins and, elapsed to now, with her 7 or 8 Twisbys, her couple of narwhals. She's got a full collection now, as you can see earlier, the 2 Traveler's notebooks, her Lockbee notebook, so she's fully into the hobby now. Overall, though, one thing that was a takeaway for me is I didn't realize how spoiled we are by having a stationery store that has a good paper selection local to town. The Gentleman Stationer, opening up their physical location, that's kind of our normal store now. And his selection of the MD papers and the pens and everything, kind of taken for granted how good that selection is. So that was a takeaway of, if you have a local store, be sure and support them, because, not everybody has that. Some people are reliant on online shopping where you can't pick up a book to feel the paper, see how it feels, but, it seems like stationery stores as a whole all support each other. Joe's the one who recommended we pick up one of the Stology books from Yoseka when we went there. So it's nice that, the stores support each other. They know who the others are. For New York to have as many stationery stores as they do and all of them to be busy on the shopping season, that's great. It means people are out, into the hobby. Even if they're not in the hobby, it might be new people, picking up a fountain pen for the first time. So overall, great trip. Please be sure and subscribe. I'm going to be doing videos for the Custom Heritage 92, the Lamy Studio, the Sailor Ink, and after my wife has put her wax testing station through the initial paces, I'll probably do a video on that as well, just to show that off. So be sure and follow along. If you have any other suggestions of stores to go to next time, leave a comment. I'd love to know of the other stores to see if there's some of the ones that we had on the list for next time, or if there's some other hidden gems that we might have missed. So thanks for following along on this recap of our New York City Stationery haul and unboxing, and thanks for watching.